Congress itself is internally divided in the sense that we have a House and we have a Senate. And that's not an obvious structure. Before the Constitution, we had an Articles of Confederation. In that system, we had a unicameral one-chamber Congress, and there are at least one state that has a unicameral legislature rather than a bicameral legislature. You have a bicameral legislature for many different reasons, but one of the reasons is to slow down legislation, to make it more difficult to pass, because it's not enough to have a majority in just one chamber. And so there is a check on the actions of Congress by virtue of the fact that there are two chambers. Now, beyond that, the Constitution doesn't require much in terms of congressional structure, but we know from our practice that Congress often creates committees that first digest and process information and then propose bills, and then those bills then get sent to the floor. So there are further internal checks on how Congress operates that aren't actually contemplated or required by the Constitution. And then once both the House and the Senate pass a bill, it goes to the president. That's the presentment part of our lawmaking process, and the president then has an opportunity to veto it or to sign it. And the veto, if issued, then the law has to go back to the originating chamber, and the originating chamber has to decide whether to override the veto, and both chambers have to override by a 2/3 majority. And the idea is that if the president has significant objections, Congress should take those into account in deciding whether to enact the law. But the president, isn't quite a third chamber. If you were really a true third chamber, then the president's veto would essentially be absolute. And so that's the way sort of the internal lawmaking process works. And you can see there are many checks there. There's the check of having two chambers having to act. And then there's a check of the president having a veto. And then, Congress has other checks on outside branches. There's the impeachment process, of course, where Congress can impeach and convict and remove executives and judges. And then individual chambers of Congress have checks on other branches. Most prominently, the Senate can check the president's making of treaties and the president's ability to appoint. And so there are a number of checks, that Congress wields collectively or that one chamber might wield against the president or the courts.